This is my reflection for my master's program for the master's schedule. Um, so the people that were involved in helping create the master schedule information was Jesse Brown, who's my assistant principal, Stacy Van Lunen, who is the principal at our school, and the people who were consulted during the master schedule were all of the teachers and the leadership team, which is one part of my schedule. The criteria that was used to design the schedule and how it affects instruction. So, from what I learned, a lot of information is just making sure that all of the pieces fit. So, we have to make sure that every single specialist on campus is able to pull students when they need to, yet giving enough instructional time for the teacher. So, there's not a huge breakup in the schedule. So, meaning if they're teaching reading, writing, or math, we try not to schedule something that's a 15-minute block or a 30-minute block. We try to schedule something that's more of an hour, hour and a half, 2 hour block, so that way the teachers aren't stopping after a specific point and then having to come back to it after the kids come back from specials or from lunch or from recess, which helps the kids keep streamlined with what they need to learn and what they need to do. Um, the personnel that are needed for the classes are going to be the paraprofessionals because we do have SPED kids that are put into different classrooms. So the paraprofessionals are in there to help facilitate as needed. We also try to group kids as needed that are going to get pulled. For example, if there are kids in a certain grade that are getting pulled for special education services, they are usually grouped with the teach with one teacher, so that way the special ed teacher can pull those group of students and do inclusion or do a pull-out program with them, as opposed to pulling from 3 or 4 different classrooms within that grade level. They also try to group like kids for gifted and talented, so the gifted and talented teacher is able to pull them and utilize their time as needed. They also pull or put together kids that are getting dyslexia services. And so that way, those kids are being pulled um, with like students as well, and they're getting pulled into the classroom to do stuff like that. Class size, from what I understood, is determined by the state. There is some flexibility when it comes to class sizes in elementary school, but I know that the principal at our school tries to keep class sizes about 22, nothing higher than that. And it's worked really well for us since we don't have a very large school, and because the school is a community school and you have to be zoned to our area to be able to go to that school. Um, the basic step-by-step process is starting with getting feedback from the teachers if they're returning or if they're not. Also looking at I'm sorry, looking at the school size to see how many kids are within each grade level, and then HR determines how many teachers will be placed on that grade level. Once all of that stuff is determined in the spring, then they can look at master schedules and start determining where the bulk of the time, instructional time, will be, and then start adding in pieces such as recess, specials, which is their PE, music. Teachers have to also incorporate library time. Teachers also have to incorporate pull-out time for SPED, for dyslexia, for gifted and talented. Um, and for lunch as well. A lot of the other pieces that are put in is the para schedules are put into that as well, because the paraprofessionals are, some of them are instructional paraprofessionals while others are not instructional paraprofessionals, and they go in and help teachers out. So their schedule needs to be adjusted because they also help out with lunch duty as well as help out in the specials time due to some of the SPED kids that we have on our campus. The class times, such as gym, cafeteria time, how is that used throughout the day? It's used, um, there's a block of time that the students go for lunch. I believe it starts at 10:30. Now it used to start a little earlier than that because we had more kids on campus. Now, since we have less kids on campus, it starts at 10:30 and it goes through 1 o'clock. So that time, that 2.5 hour or 3.5 hour block, is 2.5 hour block is used to schedule lunchtime. Then in between that is recess, and since recess is only about 15 minutes, what the principal does is give them a time frame as to when they can go to recess. So the teachers just have to pick within that time frame to go to recess. And then um, there is a collaboration time built into that. The teachers have a 55-minute conference period every single day. Some of that time is utilized by myself when I pull the teachers to do planning. Some of that time is utilized by the math coach who also pulls teachers to do planning. And some of that time is utilized for a PLC or RTI time. But the majority of the time, we try to give the teachers as much time as we can throughout their time to do their planning, to make their copies, to do parent conferences, things like that. Um, and then the focus, of course, is making sure that whatever instructional time we give them, we're giving them enough time to do a lot of student planning. So, so this I truly don't feel I was too much of a part of the master schedule due to the wonkiness of last year. A lot of it was done in May and June, and we were not on campus. We were off campus as of March. So I didn't play a huge part in that. However, I did talk to my principal, and we're going to be able to do a little bit more this coming year. This next year. So when it comes up in April again, I'll be able to actually go through the process and do some more planning. Um, my goal next year is to actually get into planning. I'm a very visual person. So being able to sit down and look at it as a whole and say, okay, what pieces do we need? After talking to my AP, he's very visual as well. He said that he used a lot of sticky notes on a whiteboard. And so he was able to move things around. So my goal is going to be to actually do that this year. I think that I am probably going to struggle a little bit with this because it is new. It is something I've never done. I'm used to making a schedule for myself and my group of teachers, but I'm not used to making a schedule and taking into account specials, taking into account special ed, taking into account all of the other pieces that need to be put into place. So I think this is going to be a very difficult task for me, but I am excited to get involved and see how I can move things around. I think that recommendations next year would be to actually move around the schedule. I think that it's been pretty much set in stone, and so little adjustments have been made. Like this year, because of COVID, we had to make a couple of more adjustments. But I think that next year, I'm hoping that everybody's back on campus, and so we can actually sit down, look at that master schedule, and get all of the leadership team involved. I think that's going to help me to actually see what it looks like from scratch and actually build that master schedule. So that is my reflection on the master schedules.